Hello, Alin. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks for the invite. I'm doing good, switching between meetings from here and there. How
Awesome.
about you?
Yeah, man. It's been a while since we talked, but I'm good, thanks. So, what have you been up to recently?
I've recently started working on multiple personal projects, like some applications focused mostly on the customer side, so not business to business, but rather to consumer.
Okay.
And yeah, researching a lot of new and interesting stuff,
Awesome.
either around Romania or in general in the tech space.
Awesome. So what's going on in Romania recently?
So I'm not sure if you're aware, but there has been the uprise of UiPath, which
Hmm.
a while back, which has triggered, like, let's say, other companies to follow its path and to look towards becoming an unicorn and all of that. So there's quite a lot of companies, especially startups, looking to like grow exponentially and all of that. So
Hmm.
it's been rather interesting, even though UiPath was not actually the first Romanian big company that
Hmm.
scaled a lot, but they were the first who were launched on the stock market
Got it.
in the US.
So, do you have any more insights for people how to maybe they could exploit that? I guess a gap in the marketplace. I see from what I'm hearing from you is that there's companies that saw that it's possible actually to be a unicorn in Romania, and they're trying to use that momentum and jump on that wave. So I don't know, any thoughts on that? How people could exploit that? I guess you're exploiting that
Yes.
in some areas or others. So you probably have some trade secrets there. But I don't know. Is there anything that you want to share with people on that?
So, of course, the most advantageous aspect is the ones for the investors. So I also invest in some startups, but some of them are rather unique, like some of them developing chatbots, other security, cloud management, analytics. So there are a lot of companies targeting domains or verticals that could use other businesses. So
Mm,
especially if it's someone that's like a leader in a very big company
mm.
and it's looking to get ahead of others, they could research into those and see if they can use, like, chatbots are a good trend right now, and
Mm.
also analytics and all of that, and they can give a company a big advantage if it's adopted earlier.
Good. And I'm guessing you're saying chatbots because of the recent famous ChatGPT um, uh, story, right? So this has been in the oven cooking for like 20 or more years, these models, etc. But looks like we've hit this milestone where it's actually usable. These technologies are now usable, and these NLP models are now usable by general public. So I'm guessing that's what kind of you're referring to here a bit.
Yes, yes. There are also other companies besides OpenAI who are developing this kind of technology. Not sure regarding how good they benchmark against their models, but it's a good idea to take a look, and to also leverage the models created by OpenAI in different companies. There are a lot of companies oriented towards AI or integrating AI into their applications, like how Microsoft and Google are doing right now with their Office or the Google Workspace suite.
Mm.
And it's looking very interesting for sure.
Yeah, I've heard actually from some other people as well. What you're saying, these trends in AI are going to be impacting startups. Whoever is jumping on that wagon as a startup is going to be immediately valued so much higher, and whoever misses that wave is going to have problems, probably even raising money. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that from the investor's point of view?
There's definitely a big push towards either jumping on trends, right? But I think it's more relevant towards bigger companies, like those that are listed on the stock exchanges, or those that are looking towards listing, to like jump on trends and attract multiple people. For
Mm,
startups, at least I don't support integrating AI everywhere. It's
mm,
good, but I don't think it should be the main focus if it's not there already, like if
mm.
it's not something that they are already leveraging, especially because of the economic crisis that's happening right now.
Mm, got it. Yeah, I've noticed like some of, let's say, our business competitors kind of slap on the AI badge onto their products. And I was actually trying to learn what is AI about your product, right? Because typically when you say AI these days, you mean these machine learning models or NLPs, etc., right?
Yeah.
And it's sometimes actually hard to figure out what they do. What is the AI part? And it seems like they just slap on these AI badges so that they appear better in the eyes of these Fortune 500 or Global 2000 companies that have actually budget for AI. I guess that's my interpretation of what's going on. I don't know if that's what's happening in Romania as well. What's your experience with that?
Yes, it's the same, and it was the same also with the Web3 and everything that happened regarding blockchain and all of that.
Mm,
The same, they said they were a company that was Web3, but if you actually looked into it, it was using blockchain for some storage or
yeah.
very little compared to
Nothing
actually.
revolutionary, just so that you can just
Yes,
say that it's blockchain.
hmm,
Yeah, that makes
of
sense.
course. Yeah, it's the
So,
same everywhere, I guess.
so what excites you about IT and 2023? Any trends you see that excite you?
So, like we just said, this AI trend is interesting, but also this economic crisis has put a lot of pressure into like testing companies if they can sustain themselves even through hard times. So there's a lot of cost optimization behind the scenes. They are looking to reduce costs, prioritizing features differently based on budgets and all of that. So
Mm,
I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening around that and how different companies will approach this subject. And of course, I'm also looking towards a few project launches of my own and seeing
mm.
their impact.
Awesome, man. So I'm curious. So how would you, let's say you were a startup that wants to help the Romanian companies, how would you recommend people attack the space of cost cutting? So there's companies that have some initiatives that cut costs. Who would be the person they should reach out to? What was their title, and what kind of what's the executive priority they should tie themselves to?
So definitely like infrastructure related costs. So of course, any tech domain should be discussed with the CTO or with someone like a director of technology who can recommend either, for example, the cloud is also a good option for optimization if there are
Mm,
on-premise. If there is on-premise infrastructure, they can switch towards cloud, and there are, of course, many cloud-based providers which can offer different price ranges, right? And those can be optimized a lot,
mm,
especially if you go towards more complex stuff like containers, very lightweight. Networking can be optimized a lot depending on like different applications. And yeah, towards this part of the infrastructure, I see a lot of either focus, or I think there will be focus this year.
awesome. Any other trends you see apart from the cost and AI that's kind of excite you in 2023, or are those the two main ones?
I see a lot of focus for starting companies in the food tech domain or clean tech domain. So those focused on sustainability, either towards the environment or towards like helping food waste or helping people that are struggling to sustain themselves.
Got
This
it.
is very interesting, and there are a lot of companies.
And are they IT backed, or are those like on the side, not in the IT market as well?
Those are companies that try to develop tech solutions to solve those issues. So, like, there's a new legislation coming, not this year, but in the future, that is focusing on companies having to report their carbon emissions. And there are already companies tackling this problem or how they can approach this
Got it.
future issue. And of course, reducing carbon emissions
Yeah, that makes
through
sense.
different technologies.
So it's first of all like monitoring and understanding what are your carbon emissions and how to approach measuring that. And then I guess meeting the regulatory requirements of bringing them down or keeping them at a certain level. Yeah.
Yes. And those can be leveraged a lot by bigger companies because bigger companies will have a lot of carbon emissions and they will be forced in a way to reduce those, or they will be impacted. Either investors won't even look at them because they could be dangerous in the future. This has also been going on for a while now.
Yeah, those are like the regulatory European. I don't know if this is coming from European Union or not, but
Yes.
these. Okay, there you go. So it's one of those like Open API, PSD2, etc. Right? Those in the
Yes.
past were market shifters. There were a lot of startups. They came out of those spaces that were helping people with those regulations. I also remember some of my colleagues I used to work with, like 7, 8 years ago. They used to, or 10 years ago, they used to work on projects that were actually in that space. And I remember hearing like crazy stories how much they were getting paid because a deadline is a deadline for the regulator. You know, you only can postpone it so many times. So there's, I'm guessing there's going to be serious budgets associated with those projects, especially when those regulatory deadlines are going to be getting, the companies are going to be getting closer and closer to those deadlines.
Yes.
So have you seen any interesting tools lately in the market that you're recommending to your clients in Romania?
Yes, I also use myself personally the GitHub Copilot, so it's like a spin-off from like the entire ChatGPT discussion. I have a subscription and I use it myself, and it's been providing me quite a lot of value, but it still requires like human touch besides like what it's providing. So
This is
that's
like
what
for
I
templating, I guess, right? You don't have to write the template of the code yourself. It's going to write the majority of the test cases or the main method for you, but you still have to figure out how to, you know, put in the business context that you have in your head into the words. But yeah, I've actually, you know, used a couple of things like that myself. Like even ChatGPT can, you know, generate things for you that are like surprisingly good, you know. And I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that because it's like some technologies you don't have access to or you haven't tried yet, and with things like GitHub Copilot, it's so fast to get started. You just tell it, use this framework to, you know, solve this problem for me and create me a template, and it's just gonna do it for you, and you don't have to like read hours of tutorials to get started. That's interesting.
yeah.
So you're using that as well. Anything else that you have been using recently?
Yes, so I'm currently researching like a very specific use case. So you know, Discord, the application for gaming communication. They have been struggling a lot with storing all of the messages that are sent through their application. And at one point they switched over to Cassandra, which is already like a popular database. But even that has had a lot of overhead for them.
Oh wow.
And I've recently seen that in 2022, they have switched over to Skyla DB, if I pronounce that correctly,
Mm,
which I'm currently researching, and it's very interesting. Like, it's the same as Cassandra, but it's a C++ implementation instead of a Java one, so it's more native and very optimized. So I'm looking into that and also looking to promote it to my clients and partners and all of that.
got
It's
it.
very interesting.
So like distributed data stores for storing data at scale.
Yes, yes, because scaling has also become a bigger issue. Like, we are a ton of people on this planet, and everyone is sending a lot of information.
Mm,
So it's very important to be up to date with what's available and all of that. And
got
it's
it.
an interesting use case for sure.
Got it. Any other tools that you have been using recently?
Yes, so my focus is on automation.
Mm.
So I've been using UiPath until recently, let's say.
What is that again?
Uh,
Sorry.
UiPath, the company, like we discussed at the start,
Oh
for
yes, got it. I got
automation.
it. Got it. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm a bit biased towards them at this point since they've been listed on the stock
Mm,
market. And I've been also looking at competitors that are getting ahead or are catching up to them.
mm,
And something that I found interesting and more optimized, let's say, is a new tool called RoboCorp,
mm,
which they are using Python as a backbone for their automation.
mm.
And it's looking very promising. And I'm also looking to promote that one because it seems it seems faster, more distributed, and enabling parallel processing much more than UiPath allows, and also cheaper.
Got it. So, so you mentioned that there's some market conditions that influence how big companies in Romania uh, need to look at 2023, like AI. There might be some things there. There's the economical crisis. We're in a downturn, so we gotta look at cost saving and smarter ways of generating revenue. Any other challenges that Romanian companies would face in 2023?
There are for sure a lot of challenges depending on the scale. Something that I've seen.
So sorry, when you say depending on the scale, you mean like depending on the scale of the company or the
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, so for example, earlier stage companies, I've seen that they encounter a lot of issues with trust, also because of the market uncertainty, right? So
Mm-hmm.
people are less likely to adopt new technologies and apps
Yeah,
because they don't want to overspend, they want to save money. And there's also some bias towards Eastern European companies when you try, for example, so this is for like bigger companies that are looking to scale, for example, in the US, they people are skeptical to trust companies that are based in Europe in general compared to the EU,
yeah.
to the US, sorry. So that's, for example, why most companies that start in the European Union also switch over to the US to be listed on their stock exchange,
Mm.
because it also gives them another type of image, besides, of course, access to more capital available in the US.
Mm. So, how would you recommend companies, or have you seen companies tackle that problem apart from setting up? So, let's say you're a small startup in Romania, you're starting a new product, you've got your hypothesis, you've got your MVP, you've got a couple of clients. How would you attack the US market given what you just said?
You need to be in a league of your own. There is the blue ocean strategy, which says that it's easier to, I mean, it's not easier, but it's much better for a company to create a market of its own rather than entering one with 1,000 competitors. So if a company can manage to create a tool which is in a league of its own, and it's able to show a lot of value. So the focus right now is on value in order to also create trust. Because if you can provide value to someone, it's easier to keep them, to obtain them as a client and keep them for the long term. So that would be to focus on value and offering something unique.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense to me. So you're basically saying that let's offer something that not many other people offer, ideally no one, and that's actually valuable to people, and that you can demonstrate that value quite easily in an hour, in 5 minutes, or in a day, depending on the size of the company, I'm guessing. And then it's just a no-brainer to them. Well, we're going to pay you X amount and we're going to get 100X in return. And we've just proven it in a day or two. Then it becomes a no-brainer, right? Maybe not if you talk to 10 companies, maybe not all of them have the budget for it, but let's say 3 out of those 10 will have the budget and you've got a client. So I guess what I'm hearing from you is those smaller companies in Eastern Europe, let's say Romania, they need to focus on finding that niche. And second of all, building that language, how to communicate the value with the customer so that they actually see the value and it's not just in their heads, it's actually a real demonstration of that value. That makes sense. Any
Yeah.
other challenges you see maybe with big companies in Romania, like by, let's say, big banks or e-commerce, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Scaling is an issue, like I've previously mentioned, both on the infrastructure and the storage and all of that, but also on finding reliable developers or service providers if they use a service provider. Because most of the companies that provide like outsourcing services in the tech space are hard to vet if they are actually a good fit for your company. And develop and a big chunk of companies in Romania are outsourcing companies, which it's hard for a company that does not have its own product to motivate people that they are working towards a bigger goal without like providing actual options or stock within the company, which is a bit complicated due to regulations. But in order to keep developers on their side, they have to offer bigger and bigger salaries to stay competitive. But for companies that are new on the market or that are just starting to scale, it's harder for them to compete with the offers from those other companies.
Yeah.
So there is a struggle in finding reliable developers that will also stick with your company and to offer them benefits.
Got it. So what would you recommend those companies do? What's the solution? Have you seen anything that's worked recently to address at least part that problem partially?
Yeah, so there is in the US, there is a lot of focus, especially in the startup space, to provide equity to employees, especially those early ones. And there is it's complicated. It's more complicated in Europe due to regulations, but if they can meet the regulations and allow this opportunity, I think it motivates people much more than just a competitive salary and healthcare insurance.
Got it.
So making people part of what you are doing.
Got it. So basically, this means that they're gonna feel like, well, I'm working not just for my salary. There's something in it for me, even long term.
Yeah, the opportunity is what
So I kind of like a
drives.
leverage I can use. I work a bit today, but it actually might pay off big time in the future.
Yes, of course, and people are motivated by that,
Got it.
or
Any other
more motivated.
challenges you see with the big companies, or are those the three top ones?
There is a those would be the top. Additionally, I think it's right now an issue with what's happening, especially with the banks. Like, you don't know which bank will stay, will resist this
Mm.
crisis. Also, which startups, if you plan to use their technology, will resist this. So there is for sure a struggle to identify what will what will remain.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, which diminishes the trust that might have been built over the last years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, having said that, you've got insight into both smaller companies as well as large ones. So, where are the budgets being allocated in 2023 for the small companies and for the big companies? How do they allocate the budgets in, let's say, the IT space in this year?
So for the smaller companies, especially startups, after raising like their initial rounds, I see a push if they want a higher valuation towards profitability, even though it's very hard right now. But having even the slightest amount of profit will make the company more attractive to investors.
Mm,
And also having a huge runway so you can resist 1 or 2 years without the need to raise additional funds.
mhm,
And that's what also what I recommend to different companies that I talk with is to postpone any fundraising if it's not
mm,
critical, because otherwise they have to raise the money at a lower valuation, which is not a bad thing on its own. It can be beneficial as you go on, because the investors that are entering right now will have a bigger exit later on. But it depends on the circumstances, and this extends to like bigger companies where I see that they are looking to build more of a cushion of money to resist in case of if anything happens, especially if the current bank that they are using goes down, right?
mm, mm,
They need to have that money either stored somewhere else and be a bigger amount that they can sustain while the crisis fixes itself, like it was fixed in the US, where the government intervened and gave the money back.
yeah, makes sense. So basically, everybody's preparing right now, both small and large companies, to stay lean for some time, and they've got different ways due to the nature of their businesses and size, how they approach it. The smaller companies, they seek profit at all costs,
Yeah.
and the bigger companies, they try to stay lean in their spending because they don't know if their lines of credits will last, etc., etc. That makes sense.
Yeah, and if they are looking to invest, it's either into the AI stuff that's currently hot topic, automation, which also reduces costs, but that's being done more carefully, and also security, which has been a bigger concern since everything that's happening with the wars, and
Hmm.
which triggered a lot more attacks, or have more companies have come to light as being vulnerable.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess the banks especially, it's always on the CIO's radar. Cybersecurity needs to be tackled and up to date. It's an ongoing
Yes,
issue to look into every year.
yes.
So I'm curious about the automation. What have you seen any trends in automation recently, and what do you think is going to happen in 2023 with automation?
The big leaders have currently focused on the financial stuff, so they have been looking into increasing the license costs, which is also a downside for customers. So many more other companies have started to launch their own versions. SAP, Microsoft, and many others have their own automation tools within their existing tools and are pushing for those. So a trend that I see is companies will not want to be reliant on only one provider. So they are either looking to integrate more providers or use the ones that they already have from the applications. Depending also on the pricing, because that's a big factor. But I also see a lot, many companies focus more on the tech. So if UiPath is marketed as an easy solution to be created by every developer, lately I've seen more complex solutions that are much more technical and are looking to integrate open API, open banking solutions, and also enable parallel processing a lot. Something that I'm looking towards would be if they were to try to use the GPU parallel processing. I've had the chance to look into that a few years back, and I'm still waiting for that to catch on.
Got it. Yeah, I guess this is like a double-edged sword, because in one area you want to try these new technologies and exploit them in some ways. On the other hand, these big companies have problem hiring these smart people. They work for these consultancies that that are outsourced and that are outsourced to the work in the UK, Germany, etc. Right? So it's an interesting dynamic. Any other areas of the budget spends you see in 2023 for big or small companies? Like anything specifically that you see that people could use and, let's say, exploit. And by exploit, I mean help those companies actually by providing value in those areas.
Fintech is an interesting domain that I see it's being looked into. Like I mentioned, open banking, for example. There's a lot of manual work when it comes to finances and accounting and a lot of those. And if the banks don't provide an interface to automate what's happening, there will be competitors that will come, and especially now, since some of them are collapsing, it's an opportunity for others to come into the market with more innovative solutions. And also there will be a bigger push towards the government to offer such solution. For example, in Romania, they are looking to digitize all and to have all the invoices collected into one central place and platform offered by the government, which is called Ep4, which is like e-invoice translated to Romanian, which at a certain point, they will force all contracts and all invoices to go through that. For now, it's only for governmental contracts. So companies that work with the government for now will have to implement solutions to work around those. It provides like an API that can be integrated in different solutions, and I've seen a few come to the market that offer such capabilities, which are very interesting. And for sure, there will be budgets allocated towards that, since from like 2025 or further on, they will want everyone to register the invoices through that.
Interesting. I don't think I've actually heard about anything like that anywhere else around the world. Do you know if it exists somewhere else where the government has access to all of the invoices in a central IT system?
For governmental contracts, the US has, but for retail ones, no. And I'm not even, yeah, sorry.
Would Romania have the retail ones as well?
I guess at one point that's what they wanted to do, to have everything in that.
Oh, I see. So to start with, they would just do the government contracts.
Yes, that's already in place. Like those that already work with the government and have contracts, they need to register those, as far as I'm concerned, towards through that platform, and this will be extended afterwards. But I'm not sure if they will actually go through with it, or it will be like just nice to have.
Got it. So I'm guessing like all those company accounting systems, they need to integrate right now with government services to upload those invoices where necessary.
Yes, either through that or by using an automation like UiPath, Robocop, the ones that I've mentioned,
Mhm.
or even dedicated tools that are only doing this.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense. Awesome, man. I think this was a really interesting discussion and insight into what you're an expert in, which is the Romanian marketplace. And not many people have an insight on. Certainly, I don't, right? So it's really cool to see how, even though we're in Europe, right? It's very similar countries, but there's certain, let's say, regulations that come in and geographical implications of how companies spend their money. Though some of the stuff you said is actually quite global, like cost cutting and trying to generate revenues, especially in the downturn that we have right now. But yeah, this was really interesting, and thank you so much for joining today. And how can people find you? Where would they look for you?
Well, they can follow me on LinkedIn. That would be like the most easy way to find me.
Awesome.
If they are also looking into like investments and all of that, I share a
Awesome.
lot of stuff on there.
So we'll paste the link in the description with Alin's LinkedIn profile. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining today. And till next time, then.
Thank you for the invitation. Have a nice day then. Bye.
Bye bye.